Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Superheroes, Movies, and Superhero Movies. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
And I'm SmoothJStew.
And today we're talking about Spider-Man No Way Home, released in 2021, directed by John Watts, written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, and starring Tom Holland, Zendaya, Benedict Cumberbatch, Marissa Tomei, Jacob Batalon, but I don't know how you say his last name, Jon Favreau, and that's it. That's all the people that are in this movie.
That's pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple others.
Right.
No extras.
Right.
Just them.
Just those guys. There's really no villains in this film at all. So this is obviously the third Tom Holland Spider-Man. This is the third solo Spider-Man MCU film. But as we all know from the previews and the just the internet, there is a multiverse situation going on in this movie, and Stu and I got to see this today, not together, but we saw it today, and John saw it yesterday. So it just was released Thursday night. Today's Saturday that we're recording this. It's fresh, it's new.
I actually haven't seen it yet. I was here just to see what you guys say.
Right, just to spoil the whole thing. You're like, I don't really want to see it. I just want to hear you guys talk about it the whole time.
No, I have seen it, yes.
So what did you guys think?
Man, that was it's still fresh in my mind. I'm still like kind of thinking about it. Yeah, but that was phenomenal. I mean, it was everything you could want in a Spider-Man film. Yeah. And then some. I'm not gonna say too much too early, but okay. that was something, man. I'm so glad that I saw that in the theater in IMAX. That was my first IMAX experience. So
nice.
that was
wow.
definitely a fantastic film to see in IMAX.
Yeah.
Especially the web swinging scenes. Those were
I'm sure.
fantastic. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
John, what about you?
I agree. So when I was walking out, I knew I really liked the movie. But I felt like there were a couple things that I would have preferred had been different, whatever. And I came back and I got online and I saw what everyone was saying. And I was just like, my God. But I couldn't get the movie out of my head.
Yeah.
And after like 3 or 4 hours, I was like, I want to watch it again. I'm ready to see it again. So, as I've digested and realized kind of like what Stu said, it's fresh in his mind. And as I kind of was able to take it all in, I was like, how did they do that? Like, they literally brought, spoiler alert,
spoilers abound.
Yeah.
Yes. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, which I won a bet with because
I thought of that. I was like, John's $10 richer.
Someone wanted to bet that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were not going to be in the movie, and I was like, okay,
I'll take that.
I
will take your money.
That was foolish.
Yeah.
You don't have the villains in the movie and not have the. Plus, it's a multi-universe. Like, how can you just the one opportunity to get Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, and
right?
They said this is the time. Let's do it.
Yep.
And they did it.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. Like, why would you can't bring those villains into the movie and not have those Spider-Men also be in the movie. I think currently I'm in the same boat I think you were in yesterday. Like, the first half of the movie, there's not a bunch of stuff, but there's some stuff that I was like, I don't totally love what they did there, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
and
I bet we're thinking of the same thing, but go on.
Could be, yeah. The second half of the movie though just completely blew me away, and so I'm already feeling like, because I was thinking about it, I was like, I wonder where this lands in my, in the MCU movies. Like, it's pretty high up. Is it in my top 5? I was like, I don't know. But I feel like as time goes on, the more I think about the movie, the more I'm going to be like, it's going to keep inching up higher and higher, I think, because of just how much it really, I mean, like, I feel exactly like you said. I want to see it again. It's like, it's going to sit with me, and I'm going to think about it and be like, man, that was an amazing movie. The more I think about it, I think.
Yeah. Currently, it is just outside my top 5. It's number 6.
That's kind of where now. I was. Yeah, that's where I was putting it at right now. It's 2. I was gonna. I think our top fives are a little bit different, but that's exactly where I was thinking about putting it. Was in my number 6 spot.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everything I'm reading online, everyone is saying it is the best MCU movie that has ever been made by far.
I saw a little bit of that before I went and saw the movie, and that worried me because just how things can get overhyped.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really glad I saw it opening weekend, because if I had waited and seen all this hype on the internet, by the time I finally got to see it, number one, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, that would have been completely spoiled, even though I knew they were going to be in the movie anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
It would have been completely spoiled.
Yeah, there's no way by next weekend, if you follow anything on social media, that you're not going to find out.
Right.
There's no way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, I don't know if I think the movie is amazing, and I think it deserves the hype and everything, but I wonder if the hype is so big that I wonder if the movie just wouldn't live up to it if I had seen it later. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As far as the hype goes, like, it deserves the praise it's getting. I personally, as far as Spider-Man movies go, I still think 2 is my favorite, because that's where Doc Ock came from, and just that whole story, and when it was made.
Yeah.
Everything was just so
perfect.
Yeah. I agree. The thing about Spider-Man 2 is like a real film, and I'm not to say that the other ones aren't, but this one was just a whole lot of fun. And it had emotion to it, but it was I think the primary goal was to celebrate Spider-Man, celebrate who he is as a character, and just have fun. And they accomplished that. But as far as like a better made film, I would still have to go with Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, I would too. It's actually, if I were to place it, and this might change, but if I were to place it right now out of the Spider-Man movies, it'd be number 3 for me. It would go Spider-Man 2, Spider-Verse, and then this one.
Yeah, it's probably number 2 for me right now.
Yeah.
I would say for me, number 4. Because for me, it's Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man, Spider-Verse.
Okay.
I don't know, though. This one's close with Spider-Verse, honestly.
Yeah,
it is.
But like, Spider-Verse was so great too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we've been blessed with some good Spider-Man movies.
No kidding. There's a lot of good ones. The only one we haven't talked about is Far From Home.
Yeah, I know. It drives me crazy sometimes when we do this. Like, we end up talking about part 3 before we talk about part 2. We've done that for a few of them. For example, we still have not talked about. We've never done an episode on Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but we've already done an episode on the first one and Civil War.
That's right.
And
how could we skip over? Like, because we did it when Civil War came out, if I'm not mistaken.
And we did the same thing with Ragnarok, although we eventually did get to the Dark World.
Right.
But we did Thor, and then we did Ragnarok, and then we did the Dark World. So we're following the trend that we tend to always do. So we'll eventually have to. I did rewatch Far From Home the other day to get ready for this movie, but
as did I.
Yeah.
Most of actually all of them, none of them are bad. I don't think there's. I take that back.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, never mind. Amazing Spider-Man 2 was bad.
But I am in defense of Amazing Spider-Man 2. It has some bad things, but I still enjoy that movie. I mean, obviously the best thing about it was Emma Stone and
the chemistry. Yeah,
their chemistry was
and the scene impeccable. In that where she dies.
Right, that was really well done.
Yeah, that
very
one,
well done.
Yeah, that hits you, and I love, since we're talking about it, the callback to that.
Yes.
Oh my God, that made me tear up.
I almost choked up too. That is, I think that was my favorite moment in the movie. I was expecting us to talk about this a little later, but we'll just get right into it. No, it's fine. Andrew Garfield, in my opinion, knocked it out of the park in this movie, and that scene where he saves MJ and he's like holding back tears because he actually was able to, save her. God, that hit you in the heart.
Oh, it hit me, man. Oh, it got me.
That was the best part of the movie. That's the moment in the movie where I thought, this is an awesome movie. You know what I mean? Like I was like, this is amazing.
Right. Yep. I wonder how many people are watching this movie though that haven't even seen The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and aren't even getting any of, they're excited, they're happy that he saved MJ, but it doesn't mean
it doesn't hold
what
the weight.
It does. when you see that the hand like it's shot for shot almost, and it was just I loved that. I agree, that was definitely one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah, I love that they did it, even though Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not that great of a movie.
Right.
They made like it makes you kind of almost want to go back and rewatch Spider-Man 2 just so you can that moment in this movie just hits so much harder, It's so good. So let's start at the beginning before let's
do it. Let's do it.
I like that this movie takes place immediately where Far From Home ended.
It's funny because, like I said, I didn't rewatch Far From Home, so I totally forgot, because I don't remember when the last time I watched that movie was. And I totally forgot that he had revealed the identity of Spider-Man. And it just goes straight to that. And I was like, oh, yeah, we get to see what happens with this now.
Oh, yeah, because John has not watched any of the, you didn't watch any of the trailers, right?
No.
Yeah.
How did you do that? How did you escape watching the trailers?
I didn't hit play.
Well, that'll do it.
I kind of wish I had done the same thing, John, because I didn't watch the last trailer, and I watched it today after I got home from the movie, and I'm really glad I didn't watch it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I didn't know. I think I knew Lizard was in the movie, but Sandman was still kind of a rumor to me because he's in that second trailer blatantly. But I'm sitting in the theater waiting for the previews to begin, and Regal did some sort of come to the movies, blah, blah, blah. And they showed Sandman from this movie in that little clip. And I went, great. There he is. He's in the movie. Okay, great. So that got spoiled for me right before I saw the movie. But no, I kind of wish I had avoided that first trailer too, because I knew even before that trailer came out, I didn't need to see anything. I was going to see this movie. I knew I was going to be excited about it. I knew, Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx were going to be in it. And I think I kind of wish I had just not seen anything and everything had been a surprise. But it would have been hard, because I think when I went and saw something in the theater not long ago, they showed that trailer and I couldn't get away from it. So I had to close my eyes. So I heard Willem Dafoe's voice. I heard them say the whole thing about, what's your name? And he's like, Dr. Otto Octavius. And they're like, So I heard all that. So yeah, it would have been really hard to avoid everything, but yeah, I'm impressed that you were able to do that, John, and go in as blind as you could.
Because even though I didn't watch the trailers, I did, through scrolling, thanks to the internet, I saw Alfred Molina.
Yeah.
And the second I saw it, I was like, "Oh, scroll!" But I saw it, and then I also another time I did see Green Goblin. It was like doing a comparison of the old and then the new. Mm-hmm. So that was my confirmation that Green Goblin was in it. And then the only other thing was the quickest shot I saw was Electro, and I really it was a far away shot from that trailer that you were talking about, because when I watched the movie, it was today. I went and pulled up the teaser and the official trailer too, just to see
what they showed.
Yeah, like what did I not like? And I was happy. I definitely didn't see the official trailer, but the teaser too gave away a lot. I felt like that. I was just happy I was able to go in and I didn't, like I said, when I went in the movie. In the teaser trailer, they go over the fact that everyone knows he's Spider-Man, and he's walking through school. People are taking pictures, shows him with helicopters flying around. That was all, I got to take all that in fresh.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because, I got to just experience what that panic would be when you can't go anywhere. People literally know where you live.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be, it's crazy how fast they got there too, but yeah, that it is.
I also forgot that he was being blamed
Right.
So not only do people know his identity, but people hate him.
Right. Yeah.
And that's one thing that I felt that they didn't do a really good job of kind of explaining it away. They just kind of swept it under the rug. That kind of bothered me a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah,
right. They call him like a murderer and stuff, and I was like thinking back, and I was like, I guess, but they did. The only thing they do really mention is that the drones were Stark technology, so that's kind of the connection with him there. And I don't remember, like in Far From Home, why he got blamed other than that, but I agree with you. It was very quick. They just kind of call him a murderer. And the thing that so I'm going to go ahead and get into the biggest problem I have with the movie, and that is Doctor Strange deciding to cast the spell in the first place. Because it makes no sense to me why he would be so irresponsible.
Yep.
I do like, though, in the trailer, in the teaser trailer, Wong is like, don't cast that spell, and Strange is like, okay, I won't, and then kind of winks at Peter. And that's not in this movie. But I actually liked what they did in the movie where Wong's like, you shouldn't do that, and he's like, oh, we've done it before. Remember that party? And Wong goes, no, and he's like, exactly. But that was like, it seemed like a very small event, whereas this is, he's erasing he's erasing who Peter Parker, Peter or Spider-Man's identity, I guess, from everybody's mind in the world.
Right.
So it's on a much larger scale. So I agree with you. It is a little bit irresponsible, but maybe
he's been warned literally about how it can like unravel. I don't remember what they said, but like the fabric of time. Right. Like it's not just snapping your finger. Well, snapping your fingers in Marvel universe means erasing half of the population. So
yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
right. Yeah, I can get past that. I guess that didn't bother me too much. That Doctor Strange, I guess, agreed to do it. Maybe he. I think he did feel bad for him, but I do like how he immediately gets mad at him because he's like, well, you called the school and, you exhausted all your options. And Peter's like, I can call the school. And Dr. Strange gets all upset with him and everything. He's like, you came to me first before trying to do all this.
Like, you didn't even think of calling the school first.
But I do agree. I kind of almost agree with MJ. At one point, MJ's like, this is really all your fault when she talks to Doctor Strange. Because Doctor Strange is blaming Peter for it, but really it's like, you're the one that agreed to do the spell.
Well, yeah, you're the sorcerer supreme.
Right.
You would think that you'd be a little bit more responsible
than
that when you are you're basically responsible for the universe.
Right.
So you would think you had a little more forethought than that, but I guess not.
Yeah.
Exactly. To me, it seems very, maybe I'm wrong, but I felt like it was just extremely out of character and kind of how are you going to convince? They could have come up with a reason to truly convince him to do it. And I just felt like this was a terrible reason, was the fact that Peter Parker came and said, I would like you to erase everyone's minds of me.
Right. Well, I think Peter did a decent job of saying, it's not for me. It's for the, the people that I've around me that are hurting because of it.
Right. But once again, you're still dealing with 3 people and you're
right. Okay. I will erase everybody's mind in the world to help your friends. Yeah, no, I agree. Let's back up a little bit. And what did you guys think about Charlie Cox's cameo? Matt Murdock as Peter Parker's lawyer.
I liked it, but there were a few people in the theater that were like, "Who was that?" I'm like, "Are you guys serious?" Like, right. But then I had to remember that Daredevil is like super R and mature, and
so kids can't watch it.
Yeah, 2/3 of the people in the theater were too young to watch it. So I was like, okay, I guess I had to remember that.
This is another one where the internet kind of, I won't say ruined it because nobody knew for sure that he was going to be in it. But I remember when that teaser trailer came out and you see him in the in like the interrogation room in at the police station. People were like freeze framing it and trying to see. They were like, "Is that Charlie Cox's hand?" And stuff. Yeah. So everybody was kind of assuming online that Peter's going to need a lawyer Matt Murdock is a lawyer. And so it was kind of one of those things where I just wish I hadn't read that stuff on the internet, because it would have been so much cooler if I hadn't even thought of it. And then he showed up and
a still from that scene leaked online.
Did it really?
And I was upset because I wasn't even looking for it. I was just just scrolling on Instagram, and there it was. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I love the internet, but sometimes I really hate the internet.
Yeah.
For stuff like that. I mean,
I'm so jealous. I'm jealous of John that he
I know.
Skipped all that stuff. I wish I could do that, but I follow too many nerd accounts to turn them all off. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
John, did you watch the Daredevil Netflix show?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Wait,
I knew
who that was.
I had heard that he might be in it, and obviously it was So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool, but to me, once again, it doesn't have the connection,
right? Because you didn't watch the show, yeah,
right.
It is cool that he showed up.
Watch that show when you get a chance, though.
You should, yeah.
Very good show.
Yeah, I've definitely heard. And season 2 is the one that has Punisher, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard that was awesome.
I've actually only seen the first 2 seasons because I still haven't watched any of Jessica Jones or Luke Cage or the Defenders. And I know season 3 takes place after the Defenders, so I feel like I got to watch all those before I can watch season 3.
Jessica Jones is very good as well.
Yeah.
Luke Cage, at least the first season is good. I wasn't really feeling the second season. And you can just skip Iron Fist altogether.
I thought about just watching the Defenders and then going back and watching Jessica Jones and stuff afterwards. Just because I want to watch Daredevil season 3 the most.
Yeah, you can. I think the only season that really leads into the Defenders is Daredevil season 2. But
okay, so I've seen that. So
yeah. Other than that, I think you can pretty much watch the Defenders on its own.
After I do agree. Once Daredevil shows up, he's like, I can't even remember exactly what he says, but he's like, blah, 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 blah. And then it seems like the whole murder charge and everything is kind of dropped, at least by the police. Yeah. There's still like the graffiti, like Mysterio is right, and J. Jonah Jameson obviously thinks he's public enemy number 1 and stuff like that. But it's really just, there is some negative perception to Peter Parker, because obviously that's why his friends don't get into MIT.
I just realized a major opportunity they missed.
What's that?
Having 2 J. Jonah Jamesons
to bring in J. Jonah Jameson from the Raimi universe and have them
with the hairpiece
side by side. Yes, that would have been great, actually.
Yeah, that would have been very, very funny.
So Doc Ock, I guess, is the first multiverse villain that we see. Peter goes to try to convince the MIT president or whoever it is to to give him and his friends more than anything a second chance to get into MIT. And so that's when Doc Ock shows up and there's the fight on the bridge. I love that scene. I feel like it almost was a little short, but at the same time, it was still really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing Alfred Molina again,
and this is kind of the tease, like you don't want to make this battle too long,
right.
And they ended on such a cool way, right?
Yeah,
like you see Iron Man's suit or technology, going up his arms, and I'm like, oh my, are we gonna see this? And then he starts controlling it. Like it was really neat, creative way to stop a fight.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
I will say my one complaint, and it's not really a complaint because I guess it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I feel like Peter didn't have the right reaction. But I don't like how the scene ended. You see the bomb, you see the Goblin bomb show up, it blows up, and then you see Green Goblin, and then Doctor Strange like portals him out of there, and he's in the the dungeon of Doctor Strange, and they've got Doc Ock and the Lizard already in the cages, and Peter's like, "What's going on?" And I feel like Peter should have been like, I need to get back because there was another guy blowing up, the bridge. Like we need to stop that, but he doesn't seem to really care.
You're right.
And he
has no idea who he is.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, but
I did like that that Doc Ock knew who he was. You know, when he saw him, he was like, Osborn?
Right.
And, like, I thought that was cool.
The only thing that I was thinking about that as he was walking up, and I was like, he shouldn't be able to recognize him until he turns around, because he's got these weird, arms on him, and he died before Doc Ock, came around, or like became Dr. Octopus at least.
Right.
And when he's walking up to him, Alfred Molina's face it's not turned to where
he sees him straight on. Yeah.
Yeah, where I felt like he should have been able to recognize him. I'm not going to nitpick about it, but
in my head, I've always thought that both of them were like world-renowned scientists, so they always knew of each other,
right?
Even though they may not have directly interacted, but I always thought that at least Green Goblin was aware of Otto Octavius.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that he didn't know who he was, but I was saying that the way he was turned, I don't know how he recognized that it was him.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like the back of his head, and then he turns around and then he recognized him. Yeah, like
right. So you're kind of almost thinking he recognized him because of the metal arms.
Well, they don't go that route because he asks him what happened to him.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it's not the arms, but like I said, is like he couldn't have even seen his face the way
right.
It was like
he recognized him because he was supposed to recognize him.
Right. Because that's what the script said.
Yeah, I understand.
Right. Yeah, I had. Well, see, that's like. So here, my problem with the movie, and which kind of resolved itself. I ended up kind of figuring it out in my brain by the time the movie ended. But at first I was thinking, because Doc Ock talks at one point about how he was fighting Spider-Man. He had like his hands around his neck, and then he goes, and then I was here. And so in my brain, I was thinking Spider-Man and Doc Ock both came to our universe like at the same time, kind of. And so I couldn't figure out why they had de-aged Alfred Molina, but they didn't de-age Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
And then the same thing I thought with Electro and Andrew Garfield. Gwen Stacy shouldn't be dead yet if he was still fighting Electro. But I think it was just they got all taken at different times. And it was the whole thing with, Doc Ock being like, Norman Osborn is dead. He died. So you're fighting a ghost or something like that.
Right.
And so I was like, they all got taken from their universes, but they all got taken at different times. And so I was kind of okay with it by the end. But I remember when Andrew Garfield was talking about how he lost Gwen Stacy, I was like, this doesn't make sense. But
yeah. What I thought was that everybody's from a different universe. But they're similar universes similar to a point where they can recognize each other. But I had the same concern you did. I'm like, Gwen Stacy shouldn't be dead yet.
Right.
If Doc Ock is from the same universe as Tobey Maguire, why is there such a gap between their age?
Right.
So yeah, but I assume that they were everybody was from their own universe. They just happened to be similar enough to where people could recognize each other.
Gotcha.
There's one comment that makes me think that there's something else that it is, and each of them mentioned that they were about to die, like right when they were taken. So I think that's what they were trying to use that dialogue for, because like each one of them kind of goes into like, oh yeah, I was like about to die. So I think the moment that they were about to die was when they were, for whatever reason, pulled
to our universe, or this universe, not our universe, but
right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
and the two Spider-Men, they just never die in their universe.
They just got pulled anyway.
They just got pulled at the present time.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
How did you?
Well, no, they didn't get pulled. Like literally, what's his name? Is the friend
Ned?
Yeah, Ned like specifically calls for them. He's like, find Peter.
But
Parker.
they were already in
the universe.
Yeah, they were already in the MCU.
I did not pick up on that. Okay.
They were just wandering around.
Yeah, they were kind of trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah, because Tobey Maguire says he was looking for Tom Holland.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was going to ask you, what did you guys think about their Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's introduction in the movie. How did you guys feel about that scene?
Oh, I loved it. Oh, so good. Oh, so good.
I loved Andrew Garfield's introduction. Well, actually, my biggest problem with the movie, and this is a nitpicky thing that I can overlook, but it still kind of bugs me, is I feel like Ned should not know how to do the portal thing. I know it's kind of a joke.
I agree.
I agree. Doctor Strange, it took him a long time to learn this magic, and Ned is just able to do it, and that kind of bugs me. So that
he's able to do it because he needs to do it.
Right, exactly. Because they needed to bring in Andrew. But I do love, like, when, they're like, show me Peter, and the first portal opens and you see him kind of far away. At first, my thought was, oh, cool, they found him. But then, like, as they kind of linger on it, I was like, oh.
You see how big the eyes are.
Oh, yeah. And when he runs, he runs towards the screen and he comes through the portal. I immediately knew it was him. When he took off his mask, my theater cheered. Like, everybody loved it.
Same. Yeah, I got a bigger cheer for him than I did Tobey Maguire.
I did too, and that's why I was going to say I actually don't like the fact that Tobey Maguire's introduction is in the same scene. I wish they had pushed it a little later or had it come in a bit more dramatic moment, because
that's a good. Yeah, you're right.
Because I think him coming, because it's coming. They're like, okay, we'll do it again. And he's like, all right, show me Peter Parker, and then you go, okay, well, this one's going to be Tobey Maguire. And he walks through, and he's not in the Spider-Man suit. And actually, that worried me, too. I was like, oh, man.
Yes.
I was like, did Tobey Maguire say, yeah, I'll do the movie, but I don't want to be in the suit? I was like, that's going to suck. So that kind of worried me for a moment until he finally pulls down his collar and shows that he's wearing the suit underneath.
And no one cheered for that. And I was I was like, come on.
So I was a little disappointed by Tobey Maguire. I feel like Tobey Maguire deserved a better introduction into the film. I did love Andrew Garfield having to prove that he's Spider-Man. He just sticks to the ceiling, and they're like, crawl around a bit, and he's like,
this isn't enough?
Yeah, he's like, I'm sticking to the ceiling.
And then he goes and cleans a spider web.
Yep.
I thought it was pretty great. And he's like, just his you can read his emotions when he's thinking, he's like, fine, I will do this. Nice, I'm helping out the old lady, and I get to prove that I'm Spider-Man, so let's just kill two birds with one stone.
Right.
Yeah. One thing that I really loved about seeing all of them together was it wasn't even an action scene. It was the scene where they were in the lab. Because we kind of forget that Peter Parker is a nerd, and he's
a genius,
stupidly smart.
Yeah.
When they showed Toby holding the the dropper and the we had never seen him do that Peter Parker before.
Nope.
No, I don't. I think you're right.
No, and we've seen Andrew Garfield do it, but we haven't seen
Tobey Maguire do it. And it was like you were like, oh, of course, he's a genius. So
I also love that you knew they had to address it, but I love that Tobey Maguire learns that the other guys have web shooters, and he's like, I just and they're like, did that just come out of you?
And I love that whole scene before the final battle when they're discussing it. It's like, does it only come out of your wrist?
He's like, yes, only the wrists. I like that. Actually is maybe my second favorite scene, when they're kind of waiting for the battle to begin and they're all three just talking. Yeah. And Tobey Maguire is telling Andrew Garfield, he's like, no, man, you're amazing. He's like, stop putting yourself down. You're amazing. And Andrew Garfield's like, I do like that they kind of almost hint at the fact that the Andrew Garfield movies are the less good Spider-Man movies with that whole scene. And then when they're trying to pick numbers, and they're like, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, and he goes, Spider-Man 3. He's like, yes, I know.
I loved that part. That was, yeah. And then when they take off after that, and this, you see the three Spider-Men just swinging.
It's incredible.
Yes, exactly. It was just, that's when you're sitting there like, I cannot believe I'm actually sitting in a theater seeing this scene right now.
Yeah. I had that moment when they were swinging, and when I forgot what they landed on, but you see all three of them land in the same frame.
Yep.
I was like, I can't believe I'm watching this right now.
Yeah, exactly.
They stayed on that shot the perfect amount of time, but I wanted them to just stay on that shot for a little longer. I just wanted to soak that in.
Yeah.
That that's gonna be like my new wallpaper, I think, on my computer. It's just so good. I didn't notice the Andrew Garfield music in the movie, but I did notice the Danny Elfman, Sam Raimi music when he gives Sandman the cure, and we actually finally see Flint and Marco. Because that was one of the things also that I was like, I like that Sandman is Sand, but he doesn't look like the comic. He doesn't look like him in the striped shirt and stuff. And so I like that we finally got to see that at the end. But when he's turning back to himself and he's looking at Tobey Maguire, we hear the Sam Raimi, Danny Elfman music, and I was like, God, this is so good.
I was worried that we weren't going to see Thomas Hayden Church.
Exactly.
That's what I was worried.
I thought he was going to be sad for the entire movie. I was like, that's cool, but I don't necessarily want that.
Right.
Same thing with Lizard. I was like, I kind of want to see what I forget.
Rhys Ifans.
Rhys Ifans. I wanted to see his face at least for a couple of seconds, so I'm glad that they did that.
Yeah, me too. Actually, and he didn't sound to me like Rhys Ifans at all, and so I thought maybe they couldn't get him to come back, and they got a different actor to voice Lizard. And so when he changed back and we actually saw the actor, I was like, oh, I guess they did get him to come back.
I think he sounded more like himself in this movie than he did in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Really?
I think his voice was like super distorted in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Speaking of super distorted, I'm conflicted about Electro because I actually really liked the blue look of Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I did too.
And I loved his voice in Amazing Spider-Man 2. They give it that like almost a kind of electronic-y kind of like gravelly voice that he had. And he doesn't have that in this movie. And I wish that I understand why they kind of changed the look of him. They gave him the yellow lightning instead of the blue lightning and everything. But I wish that they had kept the voice because I really, really like the voice. I did think about you, John, though, when Electro shows up at the end, and for that real quick moment, the lightning is the Electro mask.
Oh, no, it does it several times.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, and it's real quick.
Every time it was real quick, but yeah.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, it actually looked really good. And I kind of wish they had been brave enough
to keep it there for a little bit.
Yeah, to do something more with it. Because I thought it looked really good.
Yeah, I'm glad that they didn't linger too long because I've always liked the character of Electro, but he looks absolutely ridiculous.
He does. but at the same time, to me, it's like one of my favorite like outfits because it's just so like
comic booky.
Yes, it's just I don't know. It's
that's as comic book as you can get right there is Electro.
They did Mysterio though, and they kept
but I mean I feel like Mysterio was easier to make look cool than.
Agreed. That's what I've always said.
Because even though Electro is closer to his classic look in this movie, he's still not quite accurate. He's just a little closer to what we're used to seeing.
Correct. I do think they could have kept the mask, the outline of the mask, a little bit longer than they did, though. And obviously, they liked it enough to do it multiple times throughout the film, or throughout that fight scene, I should say. But yeah, I remember when he first shows up and you see it, I remember thinking, oh, John's gonna be happy, because he got a glimpse of the mask.
Yep.
But I actually one of the things I saw online before I saw the movie was somebody asked, how did he get hair, Jamie Foxx? Because he went from having like a comb over as Max Dillon the nerd to being,
and they mentioned that,
to being kind of bald in, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And we do get to see his blue form very briefly in this movie before he just kind of magically gets a new body. I thought it was another thing that I didn't really love. I was like, okay, I understand they don't want to have Jamie Foxx be this blue electricity character the whole movie. But they don't really, he's just like, something happens, he falls down, and he's like, oh, I have this new body. He's like, this is great.
It's because the energy is different. The electricity here is not
in the universe. Yeah,
in that world is different than the electricity in his world. So that's why he was able to.
That's why it's yellow, perhaps too.
That's why it's yellow. That's why he was able to kind of create a new body for himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it just was that was just another thing that I thought it just needed to happen. So it happened, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was fine. It wasn't like a deal breaker or anything. I just remember kind of being like, all right.
So we have basically Tom Holland, Peter Parker, decide that he does not want these villains to go back, and decides to
help him.
Not go Doctor Strange's route and betray
because he knows
him,
they're all going to die.
Mm-hmm.
He knows. Yeah, Green Goblin's going to go back and get killed. Doc Ock's going to go back and get killed. Sandman doesn't die.
I do have a small problem with that.
Yeah.
While I do love it, and I think it's a very Spider-Man thing to do to help the villains.
Mm-hmm.
But help them go back to what they used to be. But he was going to cure them and send them back into battle to die without any powers.
I guess if they get sent back to the exact moment they got taken away, that's true.
I assume they got sent back to the exact moment they got taken away. So I think they did.
So basically, they do the same thing that Sandman has gotten to do twice now, and that is just say, "I'm sorry," and Peter Parker's like, "It's okay. It happens again in this movie."
Yeah, I think those guys are dead. Like if they weren't dead before, they dead now because they have no way to defend themselves.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mentioned that kind of cancels out me saying that they were coming when they were about to die, because Sandman doesn't die
right
in Spider-Man 3. So
yeah,
never mind. I guess that's not a connection.
He floats off into the sunset.
Yeah, he sure does. Yep. That was the other problem I kind of had with the first half of the movie, was how easily Spider-Man captures all of those villains. I know, granted, he's got the Doctor Strange teleportation glove thing on, but it just seemed like he got all of those guys in a cell very easily.
Yeah,
and then it took the other Spider-Man the whole movie,
right? Yeah, exactly.
To defeat them.
And that's another thing that I realized. We've got 5 villains in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Why did we not have 6?
I kept expecting
Mysterio to show up.
Then you'd have the Sinister Six. Well,
I was expecting either Mysterio or Venom to show up. Especially I don't want to. I can't say that actually.
Okay.
But I was expecting one of those characters to show up, or Vulture. Even I thought maybe Michael Keaton's Vulture might.
Yeah,
they would have broken him out of jail or something.
So bad. I wanted to hear him say, "Hey, Pedro," so bad. But I knew it was going to happen.
Who were the original Sinister Six? You had Electro.
I don't know. Mysterio. The roster changes all the time.
Yeah,
it does. So I'm not entirely sure either, but I do think it was Doc Ock.
Yes.
Mysterio. Electro, was Green
Vulture.
Goblin. Vulture was in there.
Mm-hmm.
Rhino, I think.
I'm not sure if he was.
No?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Shall we look it up?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm looking it up right now.
All right, Stu's got it. Stu's on it.
The original Sinister Six.
I'm sure Rhino was at some point in there, but I don't think he was one of the originals.
Kraven the Hunter.
Really?
Mysterio. Mm-hmm. Dr. Octopus, Vulture, Sandman, and Electro.
Sandman, yeah,
of course, Sandman.
Yeah.
I mean, so we almost had.
We had half.
Yeah, I mean, they should have had one more villain show up, and I honestly was expecting that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a little bit of a missed opportunity for this movie. They should have had one more villain. The only reason absolutely. I think that right before this movie came out, it was kind of announced that there's going to be 3 more Tom Holland Spider-Man movies.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the post-credit scene for this movie sets up Venom being in this universe.
Right.
So Morbius is coming out next year, and that is already kind of connected to the Tom Holland universe because we know Michael Keaton's Vulture's in that movie.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. And so I'm guessing they're trying to maybe set up their own Sinister Six, but I just feel like they're going to have villains because there's also, I believe, a Kraven the Hunter movie coming out, isn't there?
It is, and Aaron Taylor Johnson is Kraven.
So I think they're setting up their own Sinister Six, and that's the only reason why I think maybe they didn't do it, is maybe Sony was like, don't have a sixth villain in this film because we're going to have 6 of our other villains in this down the line. Man, I don't know.
After this movie, I don't want it.
No, I agree. I think
it's unnecessary.
Well, but Sony wants it,
right?
You know, Sony definitely wants it.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think this was the one time you really do this.
Yeah, exactly. This would have made the most sense to have Vulture fly in and be a part. I mean, because honestly, there were no Tom Holland villains, right? It was Sandman, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Lizard, and Electro, right? So
it's one from each movie.
Yeah, it would have made the most sense to have Vulture show up. I'm actually very disappointed that did not happen now.
Yep.
Now that we're talking about it.
No, you're right. You're right. I agree. And you can't do this again.
Right.
No.
You can't. It's like, and it's funny because you were talking about how you literally said the words, I wish they had one more villain in it. And I just remember thinking, 1, I agree with you. And 2, it's funny because one of the main complaint we have for Spider-Man 3 is
too many villains.
It's too many villains.
Yeah. But this movie did it right, you know? I mean,
it did.
And part of the thing that it was, the work had been done for them. These villains had movies already, which is why Vulture would have been okay because he had already had his own movie.
Yes. In Spider-Man 3, you had 2 villain origin stories.
Right.
In No Way Home, everyone's origin was already
established.
Assumed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So you could get straight to the action and the conflict.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do this again. And what I'm afraid for is the Flash now.
I am actually, so Stu and I did our most anticipated movies, and I don't know if you listened to that, John, but The Flash was on both of our lists. Mine was number 2, and his was, I forget where yours was, Stu, but it was like 5 or 6. 2. It wasn't number 2. Yeah, he didn't have it as high because he's a little bit more worried about it than I was. But after watching this movie, I'm not worried about The Flash. I just don't think The Flash is going to have the same emotional impact that this movie had.
Correct.
And I think Marvel is going to win again. This little like competition.
Yeah.
Can you imagine right now being DC, like the DC like executives right now, and they've already seen Spider-Man,
right?
And they're like, "Oh wow."
Well, I hope, but I also hope they don't go, we need to make some changes, and mess with the Flash before, because
that's going to happen, dude. I think
so. You're hoping that WB doesn't pull a WB. And
exactly. I know. What am I thinking? Changes. Yeah, exactly. I know that I'm super stoked to see Michael Keaton as Batman, but
exactly, that's
really the only person in the movie that I'm going to be excited about really seeing, and we already know he's in it. Like with this movie, we were fairly certain that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to show up.
Yeah,
but there was the chance that they might not have been in this movie,
right?
And this, this movie just did it very, very well. And I think when Michael Keaton's Batman shows up in the Flash movie, it'll be really cool to see Michael Keaton Batman and see the Batmobile and hear the music and stuff. But I don't know if it's going to have the same impact because it's not a Batman movie; it's a Flash movie.
And, well, not only that, but you can't do Michael Keaton. Like, I want to make this very clear. Michael Keaton, if you are listening, thank you so much for coming back and doing your 89 Batman. Thank you. I'm so excited to see it. But you're not going to have the 3 Spider-Men swinging together moment.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to have it. You can't. You can't.
Right. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a cool movie. I hope it's going to be a cool movie, and I think it'll be a lot of fun to see Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck playing Batman in the same movie. But you're absolutely right. You're not going to have Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland swinging, in the same movie and having that hero landing shot.
Right.
And this, again, going back to my favorite scene in the movie, seeing Tom Holland jump after MJ, getting hit by Green Goblin, and seeing Andrew Garfield jump into action and save her and almost cry over it.
Oh my goodness.
So good.
Yeah, I'm very worried about the Flash. And I agree. I think it's going to be extremely hard to match the emotion of this movie. Even with Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck, two of the best Batman ever, it's still going to be very hard to match that energy.
Yeah, hopefully it'll just have an amazing story. I know we're both on the fence about that because of how they're just kind of taking Flashpoint and changing it a bit, but
they're taking one of the greatest stories ever written and watering it down and diluting it.
But hopefully maybe it'll just be a really good movie. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
It better be a good movie.
Yeah.
But it's going to be some smoke in the city.
What were you going to say, John?
I was going to say the Stu. Yeah, you're right. The emotion isn't going to be there because when you see the three the three of them hug, and you see like Andrew Garfield's like smile, it was like they were best friends, they were brothers, they were each other.
Right.
It was like, it was just so. It was that was the moment for me. Was just that that hugging and like look what we did as a team, and it's cool because I was going to ask you, Justin, how has your thoughts about the movie changed as
we're talking about it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't. I think I'm liking it more the more that we talk about it. It's the final act of the film is really the best part of the movie, having the three Spider-Men.
That's the goal to get to,
right. Yeah, exactly.
It's to see them.
I can get over, Ned knowing how to do a portal easily. I do like that he doesn't know how to close it. That at least was like, okay, good. He's not perfect at it. But no, I think like talking about it makes me even more excited about it. It's just it really is rising in the ranks of my Marvel MCU movies and stuff.
And that's actually what I kind of noticed was I feel like the energy that you get just talking about it is almost outdoes the movie itself.
Right.
Like the movie was really good, but just being able to talk about how we got to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield actually on screen.
Yeah.
It reminds me very much of Endgame. And how the effect of Endgame is probably better than the movie itself, just because it was an unprecedented cinematic feat. Like we've never seen anything like that, and you can say the same for this movie. We have never seen this done on this scale.
Yeah,
right.
And just the impact of that cinematic first is larger than the movie itself.
Yep. I thought about that watching this movie. I thought, God, Marvel did it again. Because Marvel, the first Avengers movie, seeing that in the theater and seeing Iron Man and Thor and Captain America all in the same movie, that was just like the most incredible experience. And I was like, this has never been done before. This is incredible. I can't believe this, I'm getting to see this on the big screen. And now they've done it again where Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland are on screen fighting Alfred Molina's Doc Ock and Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and Jamie Foxx's Electro. I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting to see this.
Yeah. And it's like a dream.
It really is. And in a way, it's so exciting, but at the same time, I'm like, where do we go from here? Like, how do we keep, getting excited for movies when I feel, now that we've done stuff like this already, and it's kind of the same thing with The Flash. Now that we're going to have Michael Keaton Batman again in a movie, it's like, it's so exciting, but, how do we top this? And I'm sure we will. I'm sure Marvel will continue to blow our minds, but it's going to be, I remember thinking that when we watched Endgame, I'm like, this is going to be hard to top. And and now that we've seen this, it's going to be hard to top this too. I mean, they've done an amazing job. I don't want to bring us down here, but one of the things that we haven't talked about is the death of Aunt May. I can't believe they killed off Aunt May. I was not expecting that.
They really did that.
Yeah.
They really did that. I was so surprised, but it makes sense because in this universe, there is no Uncle Ben.
Right.
And I always assumed that he existed and they just never talked about him, but apparently he's not even a thing.
I was surprised by that too. Well, that's kind of what I got. That's the impression
how they
I got from this
it.
movie. Because I got the impression that he had never heard great power comes great responsibility. And so I don't know if I just assumed the origin story, we didn't see it because we'd seen it twice already. Yeah. And so they didn't bother doing it. But I don't think they've ever mentioned Uncle Ben. I could be wrong. I'd have to go back and watch Homecoming and maybe even Civil War, but
it makes sense because if you have Aunt May, flirting with Tony Stark.
Right,
and she's, Uncle Ben, you're like, wait. Right. But that makes sense.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that might have been a retcon because I do remember in Far From Home, Peter had Uncle Ben's suitcase. It had his initials on it. It said BFP.
You're right.
So I think Uncle Ben existed, but I think they retconned him out because they don't even mention him at all,
right? Other
than that suitcase.
Well, and that's that I love that scene. When Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield first meet Tom Holland, and Tobey Maguire was like, "My Uncle Ben died. I could have saved him, and I didn't." And then Andrew Garfield, even though Uncle Ben died for him too, talks about Gwen Stacy. Tom Holland wasn't like, well, yeah, my Uncle Ben died too. I could have saved him, but I didn't.
You're right. It doesn't even come up. Tobey Maguire mentions it.
Right.
And that would have been the perfect opportunity for, but yeah.
Yeah. And that scene was very reminiscent of the same scene in Spider-Verse when they're all talking about their personal losses.
Right, yeah.
Drove them to be Spider-Man and take that leap of faith. That was very, very similar to that scene.
And I gotta say, one of my complaints, and they're not big complaints, obviously, but one of my complaints about the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies has kind of been that he has had this Tony Stark technology. He's really been more like Iron Man in a Spider-Man costume. And I love how this movie ends with everybody forgetting who he is, and he no longer has that equipment because the police took it, and he sews his own costume, and he's Spider-Man now.
I agree.
It's
I was very happy with that too because my first thought when I saw the sewing was, we have Peter Parker actually having to
he's got to make
talented himself, not let technology do it all for him. Nothing against Tony Stark, but
no, and I mean, and all the suits have been super cool. Obviously, they're really fun to watch and everything. But it just didn't really. I remember when we did our Homecoming episode, John. I remember thinking it felt kind of.
Yeah, we definitely talked about that.
Felt like it was too much Iron Man kind of influence on.
Yeah, he's got like GPS. And, like he's talking to Alexa.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
The crazy thing about it, I actually think that Iron Man's presence is felt more in Far From Home than he is in Homecoming, even though he's actually in Homecoming and he's not in Far From Home. It's just that they name drop Tony Stark so much in Far From Home. And I still think Far From Home is a better movie than Homecoming, but I think that's just a major problem with those first two movies. They're so heavily reliant Tony Stark.
And that was honestly a concern I had with this movie at first. Was I was worried that they were going to have too much Doctor Strange in it, like it was going to be. And and Doctor Strange still kind of technically saves the day at the end. He's the one that does the spell and
Doctor Strange is really not in it that much.
No, he's really not. Speaking of Doctor Strange, at the end there's the multiverses are kind of opening up, and we see outlines of certain characters.
Yeah.
Yes.
I noticed Rhino.
Yes,
I noticed Rhino.
That's the only person I recognized. I think
I didn't know who the first person was.
Right.
I could have sworn I saw another Doc Ock. I thought I saw a couple, of the arms, and then there's that one person. I think it was Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah, I'm thinking it was
with
Kraven.
the staff.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
I could be wrong, but I wondered the same thing. I go, who is that? And then, as I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, maybe that was Kraven. But I couldn't really. It's hard. It was hard to tell. But Rhino was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But
it was an actual suit. It wasn't the
right. It wasn't the big mechanical. It's a horrible suit for him.
I hated that.
Agreed.
I like that they mentioned that though. Andrew Garfield's like, I fought a Russian guy dressed up in a rhinoceros suit.
See, just talking about this makes me want to watch it again.
Yeah.
And I was so happy with Andrew Garfield finally getting the ending that he deserved.
That's exactly what I was
going to say. In my opinion, he is the best on-screen Spider-Man, like just as Spider-Man, just himself. And
I might agree with you, actually.
Yeah, and not because I love Tom Holland. And he's very comic book accurate as far as playing him younger, because he's actually in high school in this one. But Andrew Garfield gives two fantastic performances in the first and second Amazing Spider-Man. And he also plays him with a sense of realism. I think that modern teenagers in the world are closer to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man than any other Spider-Man.
Yeah,
because Sam Raimi was very classic and kind of dated, and it had a lot of 1960s-ness to it,
right?
Which was good, and it worked. Yeah, it worked for that universe,
right?
But I feel like Andrew Garfield, you can kind of, if you make a few minor changes, you can translate him to other Spider-Man films,
right?
So I think
obviously he wouldn't be as dark in Homecoming and the Raimi films, but you can still kind of translate him, because I don't you can't put Tobey Maguire in the Amazing Spider-Man.
Right,
that wouldn't work.
Right. I think I personally like Tobey Maguire better as Peter Parker. I definitely like Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, and Justin, you mentioned it earlier that he just knocks it out of the park in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like his Peter Parker in this he's fantastic. Tobey Maguire, it's probably a lot of it's probably nostalgia. But I just kind of view him as the guy that paved the way for what Peter Parker was in the flesh for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But Spider-Man, with the lines and everything, I think that Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was more like the comic than
accurate. Yeah,
agreed.
Yeah,
he had the witty banter. That's one thing that was missing from Raimi's Spider-Man was the witty banter. And his movies also had some of the best web swinging scenes in any Spider-Man movie, especially the second Amazing Spider-Man movie. But yeah, I agree with you, John. He's definitely, as far as the characteristics of Spider-Man, the hero, he is definitely the most comic book accurate.
Yeah.
And I think Tom Holland has a good balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like Tom Holland is more like Andrew, like the banter that Andrew Garfield gives off.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I think, toned down a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
I do like that Tom Holland seemed the most, especially when he was first cast, seemed the most age appropriate. This is the first movie where I think I kind of was like, he doesn't look like a high schooler anymore. He looks older now. I mean, it's been the first appearance of him was 5 years ago in Civil War.
It's crazy.
I know. So, I mean, it's been 5 years and he's still in high school technically. But I'm
so glad we're not going to see him in high school anymore. That was getting old.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. You know, I'm excited to see him now in kind of this new version of Spider-Man and see where they kind of go with nobody knowing who he is, not even Doctor Strange or any of the, you know, he might re-meet the Avengers or something. I don't know. I'm curious to see if this next trilogy is still part of the MCU or if it's going to end up just being Sony movies. I don't know, but
I think it's going to be part of the MCU, and I think they're gonna retcon it. I could see them doing that. I could see them like completely ignoring that. Well, not completely ignoring, but
or Doctor Strange doing another spell or something.
Yeah, just making some people remember all of a sudden.
Yeah. I half expected Happy at the end to remember him. They like for half, just because of the way they stand there for a moment, you kind of half expect him to be like, "All right, Peter," or something, you know, and kind of end the movie that way, but they didn't do it. I also thought
that would have been weird. That would have been interesting.
Well, it would have been like, I thought that was going to be kind of almost like I'm glad it didn't end there, but I thought it was almost going to be kind of like because, you know, Homecoming and Far From Home both end with what the, you know, and it cuts to the credits. So I thought it was almost going to be kind of like that, you know, Happy goes like, all right, let's go, Peter. And Peter goes, what the, you know, and it like cuts, you know, because he's like, you actually remember me.
That would have been brilliant. I would have been like that. But yeah, I could definitely see them doing something like how they did between Iron Man 3 and Age of Ultron, where all of a sudden Iron Man is Iron Man,
right? They just
giving up everything and blowing up all the suits. It's like, are we just going to ignore that plot point?
That part.
Well, yeah, we're going to ignore that plot point.
Yeah, I hope they don't do that. But yeah.
I just realized I literally have not said anything about Tom Holland, and like I've only been talking about Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and I don't want to
perfectly understandable,
overshadow like Tom Holland, like his performance in this is I would say his best Spider-Man. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
And he was so good. You were rooting for him.
Mm-hmm.
He did great.
I agree 100%. I was going to say real quick, the one missed opportunity I felt like they had, and this is kind of a joke. It might have been distracting, but when Tom Holland rents his apartment at the end, you hear the guy saying like rent is due on the 1st of the month.
Yeah,
it should have been the guy from Spider-Man 3 that's always going rent.
I actually saw after I saw the movie like a meme of that, and someone had him up there. It's funny.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could keep. Okay.
All
right.
I just thought of some really important stuff.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
So let's talk about Green Goblin. Do we?
Yes.
I know. We haven't really talked about Green Goblin
we
at all.
haven't really talked about the villains.
We haven't talked about any of them. But the one that really stood out to me was Green Goblin. I mean, Alfred Molina he was so good. All of them were so good.
Mm-hmm.
But we literally he destroys the first thing that you see Green Goblin do is destroy the mask.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, what's that about? I mean, is he getting a new mask? Or, you know, are they going to do the rubber mask? Like, remember that mask we were talking about that like Sam Raimi originally was like wanting to use?
Yeah.
Oh, anyway. But I love what they did with him because he's got that hood, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts it up and they let Willem Dafoe's face be the Goblin.
Yes.
Yeah.
His animated, like, they're like, let's not cover up his face.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
He's scary enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the facial expressions he does are just Oh yeah, like you can't help but like the obviously the one that stands out is when he's getting punched in the face,
right?
And the first couple he takes, he's like surprised, and then he comes back at that third turn and he's just got that smile,
grin,
that
very Joker-esque.
Yes, exactly. And in fact, when I saw that, I remember thinking, I don't remember, Justin, like I remember you mentioning that Dennis Quaid would have been a good Joker, but I think we talked about Willem Dafoe too.
Willem Dafoe would be a great Joker. They're both borderline too old now, but Willem Dafoe would make an incredible Joker.
Right.
Oh,
but
yeah,
he
absolutely.
took it, since he's not Joker, he brought in what basically
that
is close to the yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I just he was so fantastic.
He was incredible, and I'm glad we saw him as much as we did. You know, I didn't even know. Again, I wish I hadn't seen, even though the internet probably would have ruined it for me, just like it did for you, John. But I wish I hadn't watched that teaser trailer, because I didn't know he was going to be in the movie until that teaser trailer, and you see the Green Goblin bomb, and you hear his laugh.
Right.
And so I didn't know how much he was going to be in the movie. So it was really nice to see him being kind of, you know, one of the main antagonists of the film. And I love how he I'm glad that they had the mask, even though it's really only in that one shot of him first showing up and then you see him breaking it. Because I think I'm kind of in the minority where I really like that mask. I think that
I do too.
I do too.
But I thought it was really cool that, because I agree. The mask that Sam Raimi used, I love. But to really get the emotion, that Willem Dafoe is
don't cover up his face, right? Yeah,
he's like in the top probably 1% of people that can do just the acting that he does with just his face
and his voice. I've always loved, you know, how Norman Osborn is different than the Goblin voice that he does. You know, that sinister voice
and
he
has. Nails it.
Yeah,
both Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe bring back the characters that they played so long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Octopus is like, he talks like him, he acts like. I was a little confused about his anger. Like he snaps a lot.
Right.
At people. But you know,
they kind of explain that because of the arms, the
inhibitor chip.
Yeah.
And I was going to say that too about I love, real quick before I talk about Doc Ock, but I do love the hood on Willem Dafoe as well. When he first, like right after he hurts Aunt May and he's on the glider and he's got the hood up and it's purple and it's just perfect.
That's what made me actually really think about the whole mask thing, because I saw the hood and I was like, oh, he's got the hood. I was like, but he doesn't have the mask. And I was like, they're using the hood because he doesn't have a mask, because they're letting Willem Dafoe act with his face.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
And I was like, so they brought the hood, and I was like, that was so brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, I love that, because, you know, Doc Ock was, in the beginning of Spider-Man 2, was such a good person, and then the inhibitor chip breaks and he becomes a villain. So I love that they fix the inhibitor chip for him, and actually, you know, I know that he's redeemed at the end of Spider-Man 2 and destroys the machine himself and kind of sacrifices himself to save the city. But it was nice seeing Doc Ock have kind of a redemption.
And not die.
And then get to see Tobey Maguire. You know, get to see Peter Parker again, and they are like, good to see you, you know. That was a really nice moment, too. I thought that was really great. And I love that he shows up, and as at first you think he's a villain again, and then he's there to help them because the inhibitor chip is working. You know, I thought it was really, really cool.
No, I agree. And I think that's one of the good things about the Raimi films is that what's his name?
You're good.
Spider-Man.
Tobey Maguire?
Spider-Man?
Tobey Maguire.
Okay.
Maguire.
I thought you were like, Spider-Man. That's
Spider-Man. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, for the most part, started out having a good relationship with his villains. Even Norman Osborn, they started out having a positive relationship.
Yeah, he actually, that's where the line where he says, you know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Yeah, I like that they included that in this movie. Fun.
Right.
Yeah, so it was definitely nice to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Doc Ock just kind of share that camaraderie again. With obviously without Doc Ock having to die,
right? Yeah.
But it was it was a nice callback because they're still both men of science, and that's the one thing that like really connected the two, is that they were two brilliant minds, and into even though they didn't really talk much about science in this movie, it was still good to see them have that connection again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you literally have him, and there might be more, but I'm thinking right now 3 scientists that Peter Parker had like a good relationship with before 3 of them turn into villains.
Yeah, Kurt Connors.
Like what luck Peter Parker has.
No kidding. Very surprised that Topher Grace's Venom didn't show up. I'm just kidding. I
was actually, I'm like, this is nothing against you, Topher, if you happen to listen to this, but man, I remember thinking, I really hope Topher Grace does not show up in this movie.
If he had, do you think they would have redeemed him?
No.
I think that's why he didn't show up, because I think the filmmakers were like, is this possible? And they were like, nope, it's not possible.
Oh man, that's funny.
That's great.
I was also kind of wondering, is Harry going to show up? That's another one where
I halfway expected Dane DeHaan to show up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would
Yeah.
Because then that would have been interesting to have just a Harry in there.
Yeah.
I knew, because they talk about James Franco's Harry. Because
right.
Toby talked about how he died.
Mm-hmm.
And because he said, I think he says, like, is there a Ned in your universe or something? He's like, I had a friend, he's like, but he died. I forget exactly what the scene was.
After having tried to kill me.
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, after having tried to kill me. I also... I think it's in that same scene when they're kind of making the cures in the high school laboratory, and Ned goes, Peter, and they all go, huh? And he's like, no, Peter Parker, and they're like, that doesn't help.
That's where they come up with the 1, 2, and 3,
right?
Yeah.
Which we already brought up, but I love Andrew Garfield's reaction.
Yeah, I do too. Andrew Garfield really, I think, kind of steals the show in this movie.
He does. Yeah. He does. They because I think Sony realized. Well, I mean, I know they realize it, but they really know that they screwed him over.
Yeah.
And he knew that too.
He gave everything to that role.
Yeah. He really
and he does the same thing in this movie. So I was glad to see him get some on screen Spider-Man redemption.
Me too.
Even though he didn't do anything wrong, it was on the writers.
Right. He definitely was like, I need to make sure that people like me. I mean, not that they, and like you said, it wasn't him that
it really wasn't.
It was
it wasn't the story in the movie.
Right.
Yeah. I was sitting here, we were talking about it, and I was thinking about Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I was thinking about how like that movie opens with his parents, and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of the stuff that's wrong with Amazing Spider-Man 2 is all, that movie suffers from a couple too many villains, and the
thing that bothered me about that plot line is not that it was there. It was the fact that they kind of expedited it in that scene. That Mark Webb had intended that storyline to be explored throughout his trilogy,
right?
And they they definitely rushed it in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I think that was the major problem.
Yeah.
With that, rather than having that storyline at all.
Right.
Well, there's
because that is comic book accurate in the Ultimate Universe. They were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I thought that's what they were gonna do, but fortunately they didn't do that. But.
They mentioned the electric eels.
Yeah, they did. I like Tobey Maguire's reaction. He's like, that'll do it.
Was that like the original way that he becomes Electro or something?
I don't think so. I would hope not.
So they just came. Man, I was like, "There's only one way they would do this," and that's like,
the electricity fixed his teeth.
Yes, it did. What? Yes, it did. I do like that there was that kind of a nod to Miles Morales, because
Black Spider-Man.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx. I like that was another great Andrew Garfield moment. Jamie Foxx is like, "I expected you to be black," and he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, man." And he was like, "It's all right. I'm sure there's a black Spider-Man out there somewhere." So I thought that was kind of cool.
I did like the scene with Electro and Sandman, and they were kind of explaining how they got their powers.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, "Yeah, I fell into a vat of electric eels." Like, "Oh yeah, I fell into a whatever.
I forget what he called
collision,
it. Something collider. Yeah,
collider." And Jamie Foxx says, "Yeah, you got to watch where you fall."
Kind of poking fun of it. It's at the other movies.
Yeah.
It really makes me want to watch all of the movies. It makes me want to sit down and watch Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, Amazing Spider-Man 1, 2, and then Homecoming, Far From Home, and this one. I mean, it's just a great wrap up to all the Spider-Man movies we've had so far.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, it's a celebration of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And what he means, who he is as a character, and what he means to the fans.
Yeah.
This was one big Spider-Man party, and I'm glad I was there for it.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
I was going to say too, I don't know if this movie would have been, I can say I don't think this movie would have been made if it hadn't been for Into the Spider-Verse. Because one, the idea just, I don't think they would have ever been brave enough to explore it or even think about it. And you also had people talking about how there was apparently rumors that Tobey Maguire was going to be the Peter Parker they were actually
in Spider-Verse,
they were actually rumors that they were going to make it look like Tobey Maguire.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might have been one of the things that sparked the idea of, well, look at the storyline here. Fox took, where you can just bring in different Spider-Man. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and I definitely think it worked in their favor that the MCU was going to do the multiverse thing already.
Right.
So it was like, we'll just incorporate that and then bring all the Spider-Man together.
It's
that fixes that.
Yeah, it's like it accidentally fell into place because I don't know, I would imagine they weren't thinking that far ahead. I mean, maybe they did, but if they even thought about it earlier, I don't think that they really would have been sure how far they'd be able to go with it, because it's insane how far Marvel has come, and everything they put out is at least above mediocre. Most of it is really, really good.
Yeah.
The worst of the worst is like the Thor: The Dark World, Captain Marvel.
Right. It's still,
but even those are still decent.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to mention, I wonder if DC had a hand in it, because supposedly the reason, and I find this hard to believe because Marvel has everything mapped out for years down the road, but supposedly when Marvel found out that they were going to make Batman versus Superman, they decided to do Civil War. And so I wonder if Marvel got wind that they were going to do Flashpoint, and they said, we're going to introduce the multiverse. I don't know. Maybe they had already kind of decided they were going to do it anyway, and maybe Spider-Verse had
That's a good question. That kind of makes Marvel a little sleazy, doesn't it?
A little bit.
It's just competition, I guess. But it does seem like if that was the case, Marvel is really good about making them quicker than DC. Because The Flash has gone through so many different directors, and they've had a really hard time getting this movie to the big screen. So Marvel has had,
and I think that's just because there are a lot of changes going on at WB.
I think it is a leadership thing. Marvel has really strong leadership with Kevin Feige and everybody, whereas WB doesn't know what they're doing, and they've had different people trying to do the DC films, and
And like with Disney, Kathleen Kennedy has been in charge for I don't know how long. So that she's the only person that Kevin Feige really has to answer to. We don't really know who's really in charge.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I don't even know. Maybe they don't even know.
Is it Jeff Johns? We don't know. It changes every week.
Right.
But we like you said, they have strong leadership over at Marvel and Disney, and they've been in place for forever. And then you also have Kevin Feige's experience because he's been there through the worst of the worst with Marvel, so he knows what not to do. He's seen the mistakes that have been made with Marvel storytelling, so he knows exactly what mistakes to not make and how to bring characters together and correctly build a world without convoluting it too much. Obviously, you can't escape oversight,
right?
Because there are going to be some plot holes, but for the most part, the MCU is very congruent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do want to say Sandman. We were talking about how Thomas Hayden Church wasn't even seen until the end, and I remember thinking that, like we were talking about with who was it? We were talking about that we didn't think that they got, or that I think it was you, Stu, that said they weren't in the movie, or maybe it was Justin. I don't remember, but it was one of the characters that we didn't see until later, and but it wasn't Thomas Hayden Church. And I remember thinking,
Risa Fons, the lizard. Yeah, when Lizard changes.
Yeah.
Back,
oh yeah,
Fons,
correct. Okay, so I was thinking the same thing with Thomas Hayden Church, because my thought was, did they just not like his performance? And they're like, is this,
or he couldn't be on set, like his schedule didn't permit, him. So he just did the voiceover or something,
I knew it was still Thomas Hayden Church because it was his voice, but I was worried that they weren't going to show his face at all. And I was like, that would have been a missed opportunity.
Right.
You got everybody else showing their face. Why not have him show his and Risa Fons?
Right.
I still don't really understand why he was sand all the time. Like, it did make for a funny joke when they get to Happy's apartment and he sits on the couch and gets sand all over it. But I mean, in Spider-Man 3, he could always look like Flint Marko. So I don't understand why they did that. But I'm glad that we did get to see Flint Marko at the end there.
Right.
Yeah.
Was he wearing a striped shirt?
He was, yeah.
Yes, he was.
Man, when was the last time he changed that thing?
It's been a long time. 14 years.
Yeah, I assume it was just a scheduling conflict, and that's why he wasn't.
It could be,
in the movie much.
Could have been. I mean, it's amazing that we got everybody to come back. It's incredible to me that we got Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina and Risa Fons and Thomas Hayden Church and Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire.
Yeah. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, and Jamie Foxx. I mean, it's
and everybody got a pretty good amount of screen time.
Yeah.
It was very well balanced as far as screen time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Lizard was maybe the least amount, but at the same time, I don't feel like I didn't leave the movie going, man, I really wish we had more Lizard in that movie. It was like,
and there was. Right. I remember too a moment where it wasn't anything, but it was during the battle where Spider-Man was one. I don't remember which one. It was either 1, 2, or 3, and it gets thrown out the window, and then Lizard comes down and smacks him back in there or something. I think, and I remember
it was
thinking
3. That was Andrew Garfield.
Was it okay? Yeah. So when I remember seeing him, thinking with certain movies, I might have taken that as that just was. It felt like they were using all the villains, but they weren't trying to find stuff for them to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was it just worked really well when it was kind of like a combo.
Yeah.
And the villains were working as a team, and it was believable. That was the big thing for me. Was I don't really remember seeing a whole lot aside from the only thing that really bugged me were, there were lines here occasionally that, I felt like were fan service, which is fine, especially for like what you were saying, Stu, that this is just a celebration of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little bit more forgiving of things because of how much fun it was to just see what I was seeing.
Yeah.
And to piggyback on that's why I can't really hold it above Spider-Man 2 is because there are so many things, there are so many ideas in this movie and so many things that you have to execute as far as fan service. It was a very, very, very fan servicey movie, much like Avengers Endgame. But with all that wonderful fan service, it's dependent on a lot, and it's a little bit difficult for it to stand on its own.
Correct.
Even though I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, but it's just like with Infinity War and Endgame. Infinity War, it clearly is the better movie, but there's so much fun in Endgame. I can see why people like it better. It's just dependent on a lot. Like Infinity War is like really its own story, even though we have all these characters coming from different movies and different universes. There's still Infinity War is still its own singular story.
Mm-hmm. It's really like Thanos' story, basically.
Yeah. And that's how I feel about Spider-Man 2 and No Way Home. Spider-Man 2 is its own definitive thing that can stand on its own. And while No Way Home is a very big, very fun movie, it's dependent on a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
5 other movies, really. That's a great way of putting it. Like, for me, it doesn't go above Spider-Man 2 because without Spider-Man 2, this movie wouldn't exist. Without really any of the other Spider-Man movies. So that's why Spider-Man 2, I think, for me, is still better than this movie. But but this movie is a ton of fun.
At best, they're tied for me. Yeah. At best, but I still can't really put No Way Home that high, even though I had a tremendous time in the theater.
Yeah, I like very, very pleased with what we got.
Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the end credit sequences. There was really one, and then a trailer essentially at the end.
Which I did not see the second one.
Oh, you didn't stick around for it?
No.
So the first, Stu and I have seen Venom: Let There Be Carnage, but John, I assume you have not.
I have not. So
what did you think, not having seen Venom: Let There Be Carnage, of the post-credit sequence in this movie?
I've seen Venom.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, we haven't done an episode.
We haven't.
Venom,
No, we haven't.
Okay. It's been a while since I've seen it. I remember basically my thought of when I saw Tom Hardy was I didn't want them to bring that Venom into this universe.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I thought it was cool how they had the symbiote fall, and it was like it could go to an Eddie Brock in this universe.
Right. Yep.
Which at the same time, I feel kind of bad for Tom Hardy because he's kind of getting
right. Well, yeah, and it's hard to. What I was going to say is it's hard to talk about this post-credit scene without spoiling Venom: Let There Be Carnage and its post-credit scene. And we haven't done an episode on that, and I don't want people who've listened to this who haven't seen Venom: Let There Be Carnage to be like, oh, great. But at the same time,
I have a very strong feeling that John does not care.
I know. I feel like John doesn't. I mean, I guess I can give a little warning and just say if you haven't watched Venom: Let There Be Carnage.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay. How did you feel about the movie?
It's not very good.
All right, tell me.
It's actually pretty bad.
Yeah.
Wow, terrible. That's sad.
If you count that as a Spider-Man movie, it's the worst one. If you count it as a Spider-Man movie.
Is Spider-Man in it?
No.
Well,
it's a Spider-Man character.
Right.
But... So, spoiler alert for Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Not really the movie, but the post-credit scene. If you haven't seen Venom: Let There Be Carnage and you care about the post-credit scene, but you've seen this movie, I feel like you can kind of piece it together. But fast forward, I guess, a couple minutes if you don't want to be ruined, don't want to be spoiled. So the post-credit scene for Venom: Let There Be Carnage, Eddie Brock is in like a grungy motel room watching TV, and he's having like a conversation with Venom, and Venom says something about the multiverses. And, he's like, your puny mind would not be able to handle all the knowledge that I have of the multiverses. And he's like, here's a peek. And so then all of a sudden the room shifts and everything, and they find themselves in a nice hotel room. And Eddie Brock is like, what just happened? And Venom is like, I'm not sure. And then on the TV in the hotel room, we see J. Jonah Jameson talking about Peter Parker as Spider-Man, and we see Tom Holland's picture. And Venom goes, that guy, and licks the TV, and that's pretty much it. So it kind of was setting it up as Tom Hardy's Venom was going to be the Venom in this universe. Like he had kind of crossed over into the Tom Holland universe, and this was... So that was the post-credit scene of Venom Let There Be Carnage. Now we get into this movie. Tom Hardy shows up in the post-credit scene. We're like, okay, cool. We're setting up. That's part of the reason why I expected Venom to maybe show up in that final battle.
Yeah, if I had seen that post, absolutely, right. I would have been like, they're doing the Sinister Six. They haven't said Venom's going to be in it,
right?
But yeah.
So then we see Tom Hardy at the end of this movie, and he's trying to figure out what's going on in this universe and learning about Thanos and stuff. But then he gets sent back to his own universe.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, so exactly. Not only that. But they showed that there's a piece of symbiote still in the universe, so that is going to attach to someone other than Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock is what they're clearly hinting.
Yeah. I assume it's going to...
Otherwise, why would you show that a piece of symbiote was left behind?
Right. No, I agree 100%. And I think it's the better way to go. I think it's better to have... Because I actually think the symbiote's going to attach to Tom Holland. And they're going to do the black suit Spider-Man and stuff. Probably
that needs to be the next step. Absolutely. Yeah, after this movie, we need to go to this symbiote Spider-Man. That's the only thing you can do.
So I think that's a better way to go because part of the problem with these Venom movies is they exist in a world without Spider-Man. It's a weird way to have Venom, but So I'm okay with it. I thought it was weird that they I felt like they were like, we're going to bring Tom Hardy's Venom into this universe. It's going to be great. And then they went, nah, maybe we shouldn't do that.
So that's what I was going to. Yeah. So when did is it called Let There Be Carnage?
Venom Let There Be Carnage. Yeah.
Yeah. When did that come out?
This year, I think it was
October.
Earlier. Yeah, it was September, October of this year. Yeah.
Okay. And the reviews obviously weren't good for it.
No. Actually, surprisingly, the Rotten Tomato score is higher than the original Venom.
A lot of people like this movie. Not the majority, but I'm very surprised at how many people actually think that movie is good. Because it's not at all.
There's really no story to it.
Well, if the consensus is that most people don't like it, I would imagine Marvel got, or they saw it themselves.
They were like, no.
Yeah,
that could be.
We're changing the end credits because clearly they were given the okay to go ahead with that originally.
I guess, yeah. I mean, that seems like Sony's whole thing is they're doing these villain origin stories that are in the Spider-Man or connected to Spider-Man. Venom wasn't really connected to Spider-Man, but like I said, in Morbius, we see Michael Keaton's Vulture character, and there's a Spider-Man poster on the wall, and so that is clearly going to be in the Tom Holland universe, I think. Anyway, so that post-credit scene was okay. I'm hoping that they do the black suit Spider-Man with the symbiote, and that's where they go with that, and we'll get a different Eddie Brock, and it'll be a cool Venom and everything. I'm hoping that's where we go. But yeah, the second post-credit scene was actually just a trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Right, I heard that, and I kind of read what happened. But
Stu, did you stick around for it? You saw it, right?
Of course I did.
Of course. What did you think?
I liked it. It was more of a teaser than a trailer because they didn't show a whole lot. I do think they definitely dropped the ball with the last thing that they showed in the trailer.
Yeah, I thought visually it looked amazing. I'm excited to see Wanda and everything. But that last moment in the trailer, which John will explain, that actually made me less excited for the movie. So the movie's called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and Stu and I were joking around about how, like, you know, what characters they could bring in from the multiverse. And I said they would never do this, but it would be hilarious if they brought in Ben Affleck's Daredevil. Like, he's one of the characters that shows up, you know? But it looks like to me, and unless they're saving some of the surprises for the movie, which hopefully they are doing, but it looks to me like they're focusing less on bringing characters from other movies, and it's going to be like an evil Doctor Strange from, you know, it's going to be like Mirror Mirror from Star Trek, you know? Yeah. So there's going to be good Doctor Strange versus evil Doctor Strange, and that, I just don't know how I feel about that.
Have you seen What If?
I watched like the first 3 episodes. I haven't watched.
Did you watch the Doctor Strange episode?
That's the next one in my queue, but I haven't watched it yet.
Okay,
no.
That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna say
okay.
too much about it.
I'll watch
Just
it.
Watch that episode. It's actually one of my favorite episodes because they get dark.
I love the animation style, but for whatever reason, I just couldn't get into the What Ifs as much as the other shows.
You should definitely watch that Doctor Strange episode for sure.
All right. Yeah, John, I'm sure that trailer will be online eventually. You'll have to watch it and let us know what you think. But I guess you can't really talk about it since you didn't see it.
No, correct.
I mean, it is not much to talk about. It's just confirming what we already knew. Just with one or two things that we didn't know. With the evil Doctor Strange,
right.
But for the most
and like
part,
I said, visually it looks
we
cool. Sam Raimi is directing it. Hopefully, he does a great job. Wanda looked awesome in it. So. Yeah.
And Stu, you just made me think of something. You said stuff we didn't already know, and I was thinking about how, can you imagine if you had no idea going into this movie that Marvel was going to bring back Tobey Maguire and that Dr. Octopus was going to be like...
That's what I'm saying, man. I wish we could have gone into this movie completely blind.
Yeah.
I might have fainted.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If this same movie had come out maybe 15 years ago, before the big boom of social media, man, like that, bruh.
Right.
like
I know what you mean.
People's heads would be exploding.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there wouldn't have been so much theorizing and discussing the theory.
Right.
Obviously, there wouldn't have been so many leaks because Spider-Man No Way Home is the leakiest movie ever made.
I honestly, the only reason we knew that they were doing it was because, how can you hide all of these actors like Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe coming to the studio?
Yeah.
Right.
And there's no way that
you have to get ahead of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's social media. That's why I think they may have been able to pull it off 15 years ago.
And if it had been, maybe 1 or 2 actors that were a cameo, because we get those, but the cast that we had, there was no way to keep secret that you weren't bringing all of these characters. Right. So
especially with how much everyone was in the movie. Everyone, all those villains had a good chunk in the movie.
They were able to keep Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield quiet.
They did, yeah.
But
kind of
Andrew Garfield, there was a really a 3-second video or something that got leaked a long time ago. I don't know how long ago, but it was him. It was when they were at the Statue of Liberty. It was actually during the scene when they're talking about, does it come out of your wrists, and Andrew Garfield's kind of crouched and he's got like an arm on on the scaffolding.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little clip of him, blue screen, of that holding onto the scaffolding, and I can't remember if there was audio on it or anything, but it was just like 3 seconds, like I said, of him kind of talking to one person and looking at another or something. And that came out, and that was supposedly the big leak, and this was confirmation that Andrew Garfield's in the movie.
There was another leak from that scene as well.
Oh, was there really? That's the only one that I saw. And I thought to myself, I don't know. I was like, and part of me, I think, was trying to kind of, in my brain, keep it still a secret. I was like, this could be from Amazing Spider-Man 2. Maybe, because it looked like the same suit and everything. But Andrew Garfield, actually, that's what he should have said, in my opinion. He should have been like, that was a deleted scene from Amazing Spider-Man 2. But instead he just said, because people asked him about it, and he just said, oh yeah, I've seen it. It's Photoshop. That was just not really the right thing to say, I think, because people went, Photoshop?
And it's not the fact that he said Photoshop. It was the fact that he was so unconvincing about it.
Right.
It was like the way he said it, I guess.
Yeah, and
it's like he's a great actor, and he's supposed to be able to Photoshop.
It's marketing. That's all it is, man. It's marketing. It's free press.
I kind of held like it was funny because watching the movie, once I saw that scene, I said, "Oh yeah, that's the that's where that leaked from." But I still didn't. I didn't want to get my hopes up. I didn't want to get my hopes up that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to be in this movie, and then they didn't be in the movie, because that would have been the biggest letdown of all time. And not only were they in this movie, but they were in this movie a lot, and I
the
loved
entire
it.
third act.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were the entire third act.
It was not just a cameo. It was they were in the movie. Which I loved. So,
yeah. Thank you, Marvel.
Yes, thank you, Marvel.
Yo, and shout out. This person never really gets his flowers, but Avi Arad, I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah,
shout out to him, man. Because he has been behind Spider-Man since day one.
Did you see the credit
his name
they gave?
Is always on.
Yeah, I saw
stuff.
that. Yeah,
I thought that was really nice because they gave him a nice little credit in the end credits, saying, special. They didn't say shout out, but basically special shout out to Avi Arad, or however you say his name, for basically bringing these characters to the screen, because he was, I think, the producer behind the original Spider-Man films, and was actually brought Spider-Man to the big screen.
He's been involved with a lot. That's the other thing that I remember thinking while I was watching the movie was, can you imagine if Stan Lee had gotten to see this?
Oh man.
Like, that would have just been fantastic.
Yeah.
That would have been. Well, I think this episode is pretty long, so we should probably go ahead and get into the ratings. Who wants to go first to rate Spider-Man No Way Home?
I'll go first.
All right, John, you go first.
All right. I will give it 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
I thought that what they brought was just, a lot of that is, because like we were saying earlier, how the event is bigger than the movie itself.
Right.
And just the emotion and the ability to bring everything together with the characters, the different actors, the nostalgia, they nailed it. And that's where a lot of my stars are coming from. So I thought it was super happy, and I'm excited to see it again.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Stu?
sure. I do mine in 10s.
Okay. All right.
I was gonna do 5, but I think the 10s is appropriate for this one, because I kept going back and forth. I'm gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, and the only reason it's not a 10 was because of the stuff that I mentioned before. It was so dependent on so much to be great,
right,
that it's almost impossible for it to be great on its own. But it's still great. It's still a fantastic film, and it's one of the best superhero films ever made, hands down.
We completely agree. I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. I'm super tempted to give it 5 stars, but I think I'm going to give it 4.5 as well. And I think exactly for the reasons you just said, Stu. But at the same time, I could see down the line my rating changing and bumping it up, because it is an incredible film. And like you said, it's one of the best superhero movies probably ever made. I mean, it was a wonderful theater experience. I'm really glad I got to see it in the theater. I really wish I originally was supposed to see it in the IMAX, or the Limax as I call it, but that kind of fell through, and I got to see it in the regular theater. So maybe I'll try to get to the theater again and go see it in the IMAX, because I would really like to see it on the big screen one more time before it leaves the theaters, because it was really, really good.
Yeah, I would like to see it again as well. My wife was saying the same thing. She wants to see it again, so we'll probably catch a matinee around the corner.
Very cool.
Yeah, I will probably. I never go see movies twice in the theater, and there's a good chance I will see this one more time.
Yeah,
It's been a long time since I've done it. I wanted to do it this year for both Dune and Eternals, but I never had the time.
Right.
But I think I'm gonna make the time for this one.
Yeah, I feel like I'm so glad I got to see it on the big screen. And if I don't get around to seeing it again, okay. But just to see those 3 Spider-Man on the big screen again at the same time is just, I feel like I got to go see it again if I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can't redo this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
No. This is definitely one of few movies to make me feel like a kid again, because I was 12 when the first Spider-Man movie came out, so I definitely this movie definitely brought back some nostalgia and definitely made me feel like a 12-year-old kid again.
Very cool.
Nice.
You know what? After talking about it, Stu, I think this might actually, instead of number 6 of my Marvel movies, I think this might be number 5.
Number 5.
Yep.
What's it replacing?
Guardians of the Galaxy is my number 5, and I might be putting it above Guardians of the Galaxy.
So that's funny, because I remember thinking when I was reading people saying this is the best Marvel, and I remember thinking, well, the first movie I thought it was Guardians of the Galaxy, and I said Guardians of the Galaxy is so good, but I was like, I don't know though. Like, this one definitely. I don't know what we can cut this out. I don't know what my
top 5.
Yeah.
John, you need to download the Letterboxd app and start rating movies on Letterboxd, and you can make lists on there. And so you can, like, Stu and I both have a Marvel list, and you can. Right now. Yeah, there you go. So you can rearrange them however you want and everything. And so
is it like? Remember what was that thing? Flickchart.
Oh yeah, the Flickchart still exists. Stu, do you know what Flickchart is?
I get on there occasionally.
I have no idea what that is.
Flickchart is the ultimate time waster. Basically, it's a website that gives you 2 movies side by side, and you have to choose which one you like better. And so there is a haven't seen it button, but you have to click which one you like better. And sometimes they'll be like the most random pairings. It'll be like, Forrest Gump and Spider-Man 2 or something. It's like 2 movies you wouldn't normally compare, and you're like, and obviously that one would be easy, Spider-Man 2. But you just
yeah, no, you're right.
But it's just like every now and again you'll get a pairing, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, which one of these would I choose? And it can be really hard. And eventually, over time, it creates like a list for you of like. What
I was going to ask you. It sounds like
yeah.
it's a smart app. Like it makes suggestions for you.
It's pretty cool. I think it's just flickchart.com, I think.
Yeah, so that's how like you find out like literally what your favorite movies are of all time, because you like have to get put up against ones that you think you put them somewhere, and then like like every movie that you've clicked over the other one, it puts that movie above the other one. Mm-hmm. So it eventually organizes it to where you have, based on your votes, what is your top like 100? I guess it's every movie, but you can look at the top 20 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes you'll get the same movies over and over again. So right, you kind of have to. Sometimes you can kind of set the parameters where it's like, just show me the movies in my top 50 that I've rated so far, so that way I can kind of get those in order. And but it's a great time waster. So Letterboxd is just kind of like it's a movie community, I guess. You can just rate movies on there and give little reviews and stuff like that, but you can also create lists and stuff. So it's really it's cool. You should check it out. Well, we'd love to know what you think about Spider-Man No Way Home. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a comment on cinemaheroes.com. You can leave us a comment on our Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast. Twitter and Instagram are at Cinema Heroes, both of the handles. And then this video on YouTube, if you are watching it, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'd love to hear from you. Any way you want to reach out to us. Stu is also on YouTube and Instagram at SmoothJStew. Check out his content. Follow him on YouTube if you haven't already, or on Instagram, both. But I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.
Stay smooth.